Economist Paul Krugman has retired as a columnist for the New York Times, a former newspaper. Krugman published his final column Monday and headlined it, "I will not be retiring from the New York Times," in order to continue his unbroken record of being wrong about every single thing. Krugman began his column in January 2000 and won the 2008 Nobel Prize in Economics for his discovery that money doesn't really talk, that's just a metaphor. He says he's now going to cash in his investments in Kodak and Pets.com so he can afford to devote all his time to his tinfoil farm, where he grows the hats that help him communicate with the invisible spirits who see the economic future before it happens. In his final offering, Krugman reminisced about his most important columns, including his famous 2008 masterpiece, Why the Good Times Will Never End, along with some older columns like The Government Can Borrow as Much as It Wants as long as the moon is in the 7th house and Jupiter aligns with Mars, and some recent ones like Don't Blink or You'll Miss the Transitory Inflation and What's Everyone Complaining About? My Intel stock is poised to go through the roof. After Krugman announced his retirement from the opinion page, which is sometimes fondly called by nicknames like Knucklehead Row or Fathead City or What a Bunch of Stupid A-Holes, the big brains of the page honored Krugman with a retirement party. A wild time was had by all, as Charles Blow showed off his intellectual prowess by buttoning his shirt correctly, while David Brooks and Thomas Friedman competed to see which of them would be first to figure out how to turn his Super Mario hat so that the brim faced forward. As the bubbly flowed and the antidepressants were passed around, the gang grew nostalgic, talking about their own famous columns, like that insightful Charles Blow favorite, White People Are Meanies, and David Brooks's book on the importance of character called How to Dump Your Wife for a Younger Woman. Not to mention Thomas Friedman's thoughtful essay for last month's Sunday magazine, Bashir al-Assad, a leader with staying power. Meanwhile, Ross Douthat threatened to ruin the festivities by continually grabbing the arms of passers-by and screaming, "Look at me, I'm a sane, rational man. I am not supposed to be here. Please send help." The task of finding a replacement for Krugman now falls to the Times editorial board, which includes such journalistic powerhouses as the Mango Tango crayon from the jumbo-sized Crayola box, a wax replica of the miraculously preserved corpse of Vladimir Lenin, and that guy who walks up and down 47th Street screaming at his mother in her home in the sky. The question before them is how to create a column that can match the level of Paul Krugman's wit and wisdom without it becoming a series of meaningless characters that only resemble words until you look at them closely. One idea is to brighten up the opinion page with a typical Times relationship column that will give readers helpful advice on where to find the best porn, how to arrange a throuple with your soon-to-be former friends, and how you can spice up your marriage by refusing to sleep with your spouse. Another idea is a column called Poor Little Dirtbag, in which every week a Times writer explains why we should feel compassion for a different terrorist, pervert, murderer, or Times editorialist while forgetting all about the suffering of his victim or subscriber. And finally, the board discussed a possible column by Times editor-in-chief Blithering Prevarication III called Why I Hate Donald Trump So Much, in which every single day Mr. Third gives yet another reason why he hates Donald Trump so much. But that idea was rejected after the editors decided it would be indistinguishable from the current opinion page. In a statement to Times readers, the editorial board wrote, quote, "We hope all our devoted subscribers will take a moment off from playing Wordle and say a fond farewell to Mr. Krugman. His departure will leave a dark, empty hole where his column used to be. So probably you won't notice any difference." Trigger warning. I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show. All right, we are back laughing our way through the sudden and dramatic reclamation of everything we hold dear. This would be a wonderful time right this moment for you to go out and buy yourself a copy of A Woman Underground. I know I've been promoting it for a long time. But, I was at a Christmas party at the bookstore run by my publisher, Otto Penzler. It was really a nice party as all the mystery writers were there. And, I was saying to them, you guys, it's time for you, I've handed in the book after this, it's time for you to give me another contract. And they were like, well, let's see if this sells as well as the others. So go out and get all your friends A Woman Underground for Christmas. They will love it. You will too. Also put in a comment wherever you get the show. We don't care if it's DailyWire Plus, that's where it should be, or some other lesser venue. If you leave a comment and that comment is morally disgusting, we will play it on this show because it will fit right in with the morally disgusting content that we provide for you. Today's column is from E. Marley 9. He says, please, no more of that Trump happiness montage. That scream should never be heard that many times in a row. And, we have been playing the Trump happiness montage every day, since every episode since the Trump won the election. So he's right. We've got to retire that. Let's just get right to today's episode, the Virgin Mary versus OnlyF. Now, since the election, this show has been celebrating the stunning victory of new media against the desiccated and corrupt outlets formerly known as mainstream. And part of our part of our Schadenfreudian delight has been watching as the mainstream media goes through the 7 stages of grief. First is denial, like the denial from James Van de Heij, the CEO of Axios, speaking at the National Press Club. There's cut 2.
Elon Musk sits on Twitter every day, or X today, saying we are the media, you are the media. My message to Elon Musk is bullshit. You're not the media. You having a blue check mark, a Twitter handle, and 300 words of cleverness doesn't make you a reporter. You don't do that by popping off on Twitter. You don't do that by having an opinion. You do it by doing the hard work.
So that's denial. Then usually follows anger, depression, hives, diarrhea, and finally acceptance, as we get from Van Jones in cut 3.
I'm telling you guys, the mainstream has become fringe, and the fringe has become mainstream. There are platforms, there are people out there that are getting 14 million streams, and we're on cable news getting 1 or 2 million. And so there is a whole world out there. Kellyanne Conway, I hate to agree with her, but I do a lot of times. Donald Trump understood that and we didn't.
So of course, there's one stage that the media has skipped, which is admitting that the reason they failed was that they lied, and they lied to protect a left-wing philosophy that assuages the guilt of the elites while immiserating everybody else. The only thing new media really did was expose them finally to everybody else. Still, look, in all seriousness, we shouldn't rejoice in the failure of others. We should be humble and compassionate in our triumph like this.
We're going to win so much. We're going to win at every level. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. We're going to win economically. We're going to win with the economy. We're going to win with military. We're going to win with healthcare and for our veterans. We're going to win with every single facet.
Zippity-dee-da, zippity-yay. My, oh my, what a wonderful day.
We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning. You'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore.
I feel pretty, oh so pretty. I feel pretty and witty and gay.
We have to keep winning. We have to win more. We're going to win more.
I got my yearly physical this week, and I've reached the age where they no longer tell you whether you're healthy or not. They just tell you whether you're deteriorating slowly or quickly. And fortunately, I seem to be deteriorating very slowly. And I believe part of the reason is because I use Balance of Nature, fruits and veggies. There has never been a more convenient dietary supplement to ensure you get a wide variety of fruits and vegetables on a daily basis. Imagine trying to eat 31 different fruits and vegetables every day. Now, stop imagining that. It's disgusting. What's wrong with you? Balance of Nature provides an on-the-go solution by taking 31 different fruits and vegetables, freeze-drying them, turning them into a powder, and then putting them into a capsule, which you swallow. It can't get any more convenient than that. Go to balanceofnature.com and use promo code Klavan for 35% off your first order as a preferred customer. Plus, get a free bottle of fiber and spice. That's balanceofnature.com, promo code slowly deteriorating Klavan. You just need the word Klavan, but you have to know how to spell it. It's Klavan. All right, that brings us to Chapter 1, Bye Wray-Wray. One of the things you noticed in those clips of the press is they really never confront themselves. They really never say, oh yeah, we did something wrong. We were doing something bad, which was lying and distorting the news and trying, as they say, to tell the truth instead of the facts. And of course, they don't know the truth. They only know the facts if they do. And it's amazing to me that now that the left has finally been rebuked by the people, by the voters, everyone is suddenly behaving like, yeah, we knew we were lying. We knew men couldn't become women, that capitalism works better than socialism, that Israel is the good guys. Yeah, you caught us. It's like daddy's coming home, So for instance, FBI Director Christopher Wray says he's going to escape from his job before he can get before he's fired and possibly arrested. He's going to get out as soon as Biden leaves and takes with him Wray's protection from corrupt Attorney General Merrick Babyface Garland. So Trump reacted on Truth Social by posting, "The resignation of Christopher Wray is a great day for America as it will end the weaponization of what has become known as the United States Department of Injustice." I just don't know what happened to him because Trump appointed Wray after he fired Comey. "We will now restore the rule of law for all Americans. Under the leadership of Christopher Wray, the FBI illegally raided my home without cause, worked diligently on illegally impeaching and indicting me, and has done everything else to interfere with the success and future of America." And that's just the truth. That's just true. That is what happened. Chuck Grassley, the Iowa senator, obviously said this raid on Mar-a-Lago occurred despite serious questions about the need for it. President Trump apparently was cooperating with the investigation about the classified documents. He voluntarily turned over 15 boxes of documents months before the FBI's drastic escalation. And he said Hillary Clinton never faced such a raid, even though she and her staff mishandled highly classified information while using a non-government server and destroyed the evidence. They destroyed the evidence, which Trump didn't. Those papers were lying around. Now, the Wall Street Journal, with maybe the worst timing in human history, has started to blend with the mainstream media. They used to be, even their front page used to be slightly more conservative than everybody else, but now under their new editor-in-chief, Emma Tucker, they're just like everybody else. They're distorting things like everybody else. And this is how they covered it with this paragraph about Kash Patel, right? They're talking about Kash Patel, who Trump has picked to head the FBI after Wray was gone. And this is their comparison. Patel's bombastic approach stands in contrast to that of Wray, a restrained and circumspect leader who has stressed the Bureau's independence and defended his workforce as dedicated to objectivity and the rule of law. His expected exit and the pick of Patel have left many in the Bureau on edge. And I'm sure by now you're dabbing at your eyes to get the tears. Oh, the poor FBI agents are on edge. And they then ran John Bolton with this hit piece on Patel saying he doesn't deserve, Christopher Wray shouldn't be fired and he's going to be replaced by this terrible guy. Christopher Wray oversaw an FBI corrupted at the highest level by Babyface Garland. I mean, that's just the truth. Under Wray, we got parents labeled as terrorists and investigated as terrorists for defending their children against the perverts who were on their school board and were pushing on them. We got an abortion protester, a raid on an abortion protester in the early morning hours by armed FBI agents as a way of keeping people in line. It was a way of intimidating us, all of us, after Dobbs was overturned. And after Dobbs overturned the atrocity of Roe v. Wade, they want to say, yeah, but don't you dare protest, don't you dare go out there and show people what abortion really is, because then we're going to come to your home in the dead of night and drag you away in cuffs while your children look on. And we had, on this show, we had an FBI whistleblower, Steve Friend, and there are others who came out and said the FBI was unfairly targeting right-wing groups. We now have an IG report saying, an investigative report saying that there were more than 24 confidential informants mingling with the crowd on January 6th. And maybe one of them, we don't know, was Ray Epps, who encouraged the attack on the Capitol. Ray denied that there was any, and this report also confirms or says there was no push by the FBI to get the the protesters to do something wrong. The protesters certainly suspected it when Ray Epps was saying, we have to go into the building. People were shouting at him, Fed, Fed, Fed. Under Ray, we got the infamous Richmond, Virginia Catholic memo that essentially said trad Catholics are suspected terrorists. And obviously, as long as Michael Knowles is free, they'll have a point. But no, this is like absolutely un-American. And Ray minimized this in this questioning before the committee, where he said this was one bureau, the Richmond, Virginia Bureau. Here's a little clip of that, cut 4.
You're referring to the Richmond product, which was a single product by a single field office, which as soon as I found out about it, I was aghast and ordered it withdrawn and removed from FBI systems.
But in fact, the House Judiciary Committee found that the FBI Richmond field office coordinated with multiple FBI field offices across the country to produce the memo targeting traditional Catholics as potential domestic terrorists. I'm reading this from the Judiciary Committee's report. A lesser redacted version of the anti-Catholic memo shows that both FBI Portland, FBI Los Angeles field officers were involved. And the important thing is no one was fired for saying that a traditional Catholic is essentially a terrorist suspect. No one was fired for that. Ray said, they were rebuked. I rebuke thee, I'm sure there was a lot of rebuking going on. The guy coming home to his, how was your day, dear? Oh, it was terrible. I was rebuked for targeting Catholic people as potential terrorists. The ugliest malfeasance, though, was the lack of an investigation into Hunter Biden. And this is incredible. This is, again, quoting Grassley, Senator Grassley. On August 6, 2020, as Senator Ron Johnson and I were finishing our report on the Biden family's financial connections to foreign governments and questionable foreign nationals, the FBI succumbed to pressure from Democrats in Congress and provided an unnecessary briefing that Democratic leadership requested in an effort to falsely label our investigation as Russian disinformation. I remember this, and it was basically, the FBI becoming political on behalf of the Democrats to say that there was no point in questioning any investigation into Biden's family's financial dealings. Well, whistleblower testimony pointed to Hunter Biden's $8.3 million in income that includes foreign payments in the form of a large diamond valued at $80,000, a Porsche worth at least $140,000. And a lot of this came from Chinese entities, which makes it all the more interesting that Biden yesterday, the day before, just pardoned or commuted the sentences of over 1,500 people, including a guy named Yanjin Zhu, who was convicted for spying for the Chinese. Another spy named Xi Jiaqun was convicted of conspiracy to defraud the United States. And, this is coming from the Federalist, Biden also granted clemency to Shanlin Jin, who was convicted after police found more than 47,000 images and videos of child in his computer. What the hell is he getting clemency for? Why are any Chinese spies getting clemency, except for maybe the fact that they paid the president and his family off? In September 2019, President Biden said, I've never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings, but President Biden is implicated. Here's the big one. This one really gets me. Hunter Biden called his friends at the CEFC China Energy company, where he was supposed to be a consultant, right? And he told this guy, he sent him a WhatsApp message, which said, I am sitting here with my father. This is Hunter Biden talking, and we would like to understand why the commitment made has not been fulfilled. Why haven't we gotten our money from you yet, right? Tell the director that I would like to resolve this now before it gets out of hand, and now means tonight. And if I get a call or text from anyone involved in this, other than you, the guy I'm talking to, or the chairman or Zhang, I will make certain that between the man sitting next to me, Joe Biden, and every person he knows, and my ability to forever hold a grudge, that you will regret not following my direction. This is extortion using the president of the United States. So they wanted to investigate whether, in fact, when he sent this WhatsApp message, whether Joe Biden was in fact sitting next to him, but the FBI officials prevented, IRS investigators from accessing a laptop that held relevant documents to the investigation because, and then they said they wouldn't check the phone records to see if Biden was sitting there with his son, because the property in question that would be searching would be the guest house of former Vice President Biden, and the optics would be bad. And here is Senator Cruz doing his duty by ripping into Ray about this in questioning.
Is the FBI, do they make a routine practice of allowing partisan political optics to prevent investigating serious evidence of corruption?
My instructions to our people on this and on every other investigation are that we are to follow the facts wherever they lead, no matter who likes it, no matter what political influence
Then why
there
did
may
you
be
get
out
the
there.
GPS data on where Hunter Biden and Joe Biden were?
Again, Senator, with respect, I can't discuss
But it's
an
not
ongoing
with respect.
investigation.
And Director Wray, you and I have gone round and round on this because I understand. Anytime you're asked about this, the answer is it's an ongoing investigation. Of course, the investigation isn't ongoing. You're not doing the work. You got whistleblowers pointing out that you're not doing the work, and you are hiding behind the skirts of the Attorney General.
That's not Cruz grandstanding. He's just giving the plain facts. There was no ongoing investigation because they wouldn't do it because they were protecting Joe Biden from the fact that he was there was plenty of evidence that he was getting money from the Chinese through his family's extortion and influence peddling. And this is the guy they're talking about, Wray, and the whole thing about the press, the whole joyfulness involved in the failure of the mainstream press is not in the lies they told. It's in the silences they kept. It's in the things they didn't say. Because by protecting these people, by protecting Joe Biden, by saying over and over again there was no evidence that he had anything to do with Hunter Biden's influence peddling business, by saying that again and again, they could then insult Donald Trump and you and me and every other Republican and all the Republicans that came before Trump without pointing out that everybody around them was worse. Everybody around them was worse. If Donald Trump was as bad as they say he is, they were still worse. Joe Biden was one of the most corrupt presidents we've ever had. More corrupt than Obama, who was far more damaging and sinister. But this guy was money corrupt. And, Donald Trump just isn't because he has enough money. All right, let's look at some more. If you want to stay in beautiful shape like me, you got to get yourself a Lumen. It's the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It's a device that measures your metabolism through your breath. The app lets you know if you're burning fat or carbs and gives you tailored guidance to improve your nutrition, workouts, sleep, and even stress management. I've always wondered why some days I feel energized and other days I'm dragging, even when I'm doing the same things. That's where understanding your metabolism comes in. It's really the center of everything your body does. And any meaningful health journey takes commitment. But what I love about Lumen is how it helps guide those daily decisions. When you're ready to make lifestyle changes, Lumen is there with personalized insights every step of the way. Here's what I do. You get up like in the morning, you just breathe into it, and you get a personalized nutrition plan on this app that gives you idea for your day and what kind of nutrition you need. And you can even track your metabolism before and after workouts and meals to understand exactly what's happening in your body. Now, usually after workouts, I'm passed out, but after meals and in the morning, it's great. So if you want to stay on track with your health this holiday season, go to lumen.me/Klavan to get 15% off your Lumen. That's lumen.me/Klavan for 15% off your purchase. Lumen makes a great gift too. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, I know how to spell Lumen. Anyone can spell Lumen, but how do you spell Klavan? Here's a little ditty to help you remember.
There are no easy claims.
Chapter 2, Arrest and Trial. Now, you probably don't remember this, obviously, but in the 1960s, before there was Law and Order, they tried that show, the same exact show. It's called Arrest and Trial, and I don't think it did very well. They had great actors in it. Ben Gazzara was in it. But anyway, that's what happened in New York City, or maybe we could call it Trial and Arrest. Daniel Penny was the Marine who put a chokehold on violent homeless man Jordan Neely in a subway after Jordan Neely threatened to kill people in the subway. And the people helped Penny restrain Neely. Some of those people, Neely was black, Penny was white, and so that was supposed to be a racial issue, but some of the people who helped Penny restrain Neely were also black, because this will come as a surprise to you. This is a little-known sociological truth that black people also don't like being terrorized and killed. It's like, who would ever guess after they keep voting for Democrats, you think maybe they do like being terrorized and killed, but no, in fact, they don't. Here is Penny describing, after he was acquitted of, really of killing this guy. It was like negligent homicide. This is his description of why he did it, cut 7.
The guilt I would have felt if someone did get hurt, if he did do what he was threatening to do, would never be able to live with myself. And I'll take 1 million court appearances and people calling me names, and people hating me just to keep one of those people from getting hurt or killed.
Yeah, because he's what we call a hero, and they put him, they put him on trial because they don't want you to defend yourself, because if you defend yourself, then that means they have done something to put you in danger, and you have to do that. In other words, if you're a vigilante, if he's a vigilante, which he's not, he's just a citizen acting like a citizen should, but if he's a vigilante, why do you need vigilantes? It's because nobody is protecting us. And here, from this group, Black Lives Matter, which has got to be the most corrupt group in the country, why anybody is listening to this, guys? This is leader Hawk Newsom delivering his idea of what this trial means. Cut 8.
Just like everybody else seeks justice on their own, just like everybody else has vigilantes, we need some black vigilantes. That's right. People want to jump up and choke us and kill us for being loud. How about we do the same when they attempt to oppress us?
That's an amazing call to violence, which probably he could have been arrested for if we lived in a saner place, and that's in New York, we're a saner city, calling on people to inciting violence, and using that word "us" to define Jordan Neely as opposed to Penny because of the color of his skin. When Jordan Neely was considered one of the most violent and dangerous homeless people in the city and had once punched an old woman, a 67-year-old woman, so hard he had broken her orbital bone. Here's how the New York Times covered this in their print edition, which usually they put their worst headlines in their online edition so they can get rid of them quickly. New York Times headline was, "Jury acquits man who was choking rider on subway." I mean, that would be kind of bad. But of course, Neely was a violent guy. And more than that, Daniel Henninger made this really good point in his column this week in the Wall Street Journal. He said, the week before Thanksgiving, a man in Lower Manhattan was caught on video hiding a long knife in his sweatshirt. He then fatally stabbed a construction worker on West 19th Street, ran across town, stabbed a man fishing by the East River, killing him, ran up First Avenue and stabbed a woman sitting on a bench. She later died. This guy was named Ramon Rivera, a well-known madman who had been arrested and released numerous times, as had Jordan Neely. So who is to blame? If someone is to blame for Jordan Neely, this obviously very sick man, an afflicted man, I feel I have some feeling for him. He was insane. What was he doing on the street? Well, here's Heather McDonald writing in City Journal. She says the prosecution during Daniel Penny's trial argued that Penny should have known his chokehold was allegedly going on too long and that it could result in Neely's alleged asphyxiation. Penny recklessly disregarded the risk of death according to the initial manslaughter count of the indictment. If one follows the prosecution's logic, says Heather, New York's government should have stood trial. New York's government should have stood trial. If Penny was reckless regarding the risk that his restraint of Neely would allegedly cause Neely's death, the state and city have been worse than reckless in their disregard for citizen safety. It is not just a possibility or probability that in the near future another mentally ill drug addict will assault an innocent civilian. It's a certainty. And I've told you this before. Powerful leftists make ruinous policy. Then they blame the innocent guy at the bottom of the totem pole, the guy who has to deal with the result of their crappy policies. So the cop who has to arrest more black people than white people because black communities have been destroyed by leftism and dependence and welfare and the assumption that a black person is a criminal, which that guy Hawk Newsom made, the assumption that this guy is us because we're all just psychopaths. We're just being loud by screaming at a woman he's going to kill her. We're just a loud black person and that's why he was killed. No, this was a violent criminal, and I'm sorry, but the majority of black people are not violent criminals. And to say that they are is incredibly conducive to elevating people like George Floyd and saying this is what a black guy is. And that's a terrible, terrible thing to do to people. So what they do is they then crucify the cop who has to deal with the black guy who's been destroyed because his culture has been destroyed by Democrats. They kill the unborn baby who wasn't wanted because of the policy of the left that we should all be sexually free. It's the innocent baby who has no voice, who has no vote, who can't be heard, who can't protest. He's the person who has to be wiped out and have no life and not have the life that he was given by God He has to have that taken away from him because the Democrats created that situation. A girl has to lose her sporting trophy so boys can play pretend at being girls. I mean, the same principle applied to the of this CEO. We're talking about arrest and trial. This is the arrest. Was found, a guy named Luigi Mangione he assassinated the CEO of an insurance company, and that sent the left spiraling into paroxysms of joy. First of all, they made this guy into a sex symbol. He was ripped. He had a good physique, and they made him into a sex symbol. There's a guy who just shot a guy in the back. He shot him in the back with a silenced rifle, just assassinated him on the street. Here's Taylor Lorenz, who has worked for the Washington Post and I believe the New York Times. And this is what she said to Piers Morgan about this.
I do believe in the sanctity of life. And I think that's why I felt, along with so many other Americans, joy, unfortunately, because it feels like...
Serious?
I mean...
Joy at a man's execution?
Maybe not joy, but certainly not empathy. Because again,
we're watching the footage. How can this make you joyful? This guy's a husband, he's a father, and he's being gunned down in the middle of Manhattan. Why does that make you joyful?
Of Americans so are the tens of thousands of Americans, innocent Americans, who died because greedy health insurance executives like this one push policies of denying care to the most vulnerable people.
You know why they deny care to people? Why they have to, fiddle around sometimes and not pay off? And by the way, I don't know why all these leftist women have that weird smile and those bright eyes when they're saying insane things, but they do. But it's Obamacare. Obamacare mandated that insurance companies cover all these things that they can't possibly cover. Transgender surgeries and, abortions and drug addicts and all this stuff. And, you've heard all these things about pre-existing conditions. We have to, why are you so heartless? You won't cover a pre-existing condition? Here is how insurance companies work. You pay them over time while you're healthy, and that money amasses, and they make money on that money so that when you get sick, they have money to pay your bills. That's how it works. It's a gamble. They're gambling that you will stay healthy for a longer period of time, and then they will amass enough money to pay off your bills when you get old and you actually need coverage, and then they'll cover that. If you come into them and you're sick already, what's the business model for that? What is the business model for that? Obamacare was passed. Obama knew it was going to create this situation so that they could then go to the people and say, now we need one single payer healthcare. We need the government to take over all your healthcare. And then the government has to commit euthanasia and kill you because we can't afford to treat you, which is they're doing in Canada and soon will be doing in England. It's the government that does these things. And then the last guy on the totem pole, the guy who's least responsible for it, who in this case was the CEO of a company, gets. And they rejoice. And they rejoice just like they put a cop away for the death of George Floyd. They put him away for, he's going to be in prison forever unless he gets out on appeal because of what they do to people, of what their policies do to people. They always deal with the results of their policies by blaming the innocent, the unborn baby, the cop on the street, instead of changing the policies, changing their minds. And one of the reasons they've been able to do that is because the press has lied about what they're doing, what they intend to do, what they want to do, and what the results of what they do are, which is immiserating everybody who doesn't happen to be a rich person living on Park Avenue or in Prospect Park, Brooklyn. All these Park Slope, Brooklyn. These are the guys who are fine with leftist policies, but the press will not tell us about what happens to real people and blames instead the innocent. They got exactly what they deserve in this election, and I hope they get it more. This Christmas season, as we celebrate the gift of life, you have an opportunity to make a profound difference in the lives of mothers and their unborn children. Every day, women face uncertain circumstances, searching for hope and support during challenging pregnancies. That's where PreBorn Ministries steps in. I'll tell you a story about Kelsey. When she discovered she was pregnant, she felt overwhelmed and unsure about her future. Through a PreBorn network clinic, she found not just medical care, but a community of support. The moment she saw her baby on the ultrasound and heard that heartbeat, Everything changed. Today, she cherishes every moment with her son, who brings immeasurable joy to her life. Stories like Kelsey's happen every day at PreBorn clinics across the country. This Christmas, you have the opportunity to be part of these transformative moments. Through a special matching grant, your gift of $28 is doubled, making twice the impact. To join this vital work, dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby. That's pound 250, keyword baby, or make your secure donation online at preborn.com/Klavan. I'll repeat that, pound 250, keyword baby, or preborn.com/KLAVAN. Your gift today could save countless lives tomorrow. Chapter 3, The Worst Silence. Like I said, the media is responsible not for the lies they tell, though they do tell lies and distortions, but it's for the things they don't tell. And the worst of it is this ideology that is directed toward the destruction of women as women, because women as women prioritize love over power and children and family over career, and that does not fit in with the plans of the power-hungry who want to be able to use them for work, tax them, and destroy the family so they get to take over the children and inculcate them with their philosophy. So they deny women's nature, they deny their role, and they deny the honor and respect that they deserve for raising children and making homes possibly the most honorable profession that any human being has. So instead, what do? You get Lily Phillips. Lily Phillips is a young lady, 23, who is a model, as they call her, and she slept with 100 men in a single day to make money on her thing. And then she was making a documentary, and it was clear from watching in this documentary that the experience damaged her, as of course it did. Here's a brief clip of her talking on this documentary after she has sex with 100 men.
It's not for the weak, girls. If I'm honest, it was hard. I don't know if I'd recommend it.
Why not?
I think if you're a different type of girl, it's very like, it's kind of like being a prostitute in a sense of like, it's just a different feeling. I don't know how to explain it, like.
It's not like just having sex with someone.
Yeah. Just one in, one out, like it feels intense.
Like more intense than you thought it might.
Definitely.
So, she's crying, definitely. She says like being a radical feminist, I think in Britain, said, well, this is the fault of the men. They should all be put in prison. And of course, everybody on the right said, no, Lily Phillips is responsible for herself. And I can't remember the last time I agreed with a feminist. I think they're the most destructive people in the West. But I agree with this one. Of course, Lily Phillips is responsible for herself, and she's responsible for the consequences of her own actions. But so are the men. And gentlemen, I hope I don't have to tell you this, but when a woman says, come in and me, or humiliate me, or hurt me, or crap on me, or anything, the answer is no, right? That's the answer is no, not because of who she is, but because of who you are, which is a man. You're a man. And, they talk about gender assignment as if that were done by doctors or by activists or by you, that you could have a gender. No, the gender assignment comes from God. And if you're a man, your gender assignment has to do with honor, and honor has to do with who you are. And so it doesn't matter what she wants and what she agrees to and what she consents to. It matters what you are willing to do to someone. And one of the things that men are responsible for is protecting and caring for the vulnerable, which certainly in my antiquated view includes all women, but certainly a mentally, afflicted child of God like this girl who is asking people to do something to her that is going to stick with her probably for life and traumatize her probably for life. And even if it doesn't, it's dishonorable. I mean, that's a no, right? You guys know that already. I don't have to tell you that. You're not a man if you have no honor. I don't care. I would rather you wear pink socks and watch the Hallmark Channel than do something like, go into a girl like this and you're more of a man you're more of a man wearing pink socks and holding a stuffed bunny and watching the Hallmark Channel than you are if you do something like that to a woman. All right, I want to talk about this, but I don't want to talk about it because I want first of all to have a young lady come on, and I want her to be younger than I am, so she's more involved in this culture. So I want to talk to Mary Morgan, who I like very much. She's a host of Pop Culture Crisis, which she describes as your source of sanity in the insane world of pop culture. You may have seen her on Timcast, where she goes for her sins, but I want to talk to her about this in particular. Mary, thank you so much for coming on. It's good to see you again.
Thank you for having me.
So I want to talk to you as an official female young person, because I look at this and it's everything I can do not to turn into an old man shaking my cane at the sky. How did Lily Phillips come up with this? Where does she come from? How did she get to this point?
Yeah, so Lily Phillips is a model. I don't like calling them models because, you're not modeling anything if you are naked on camera, but she is based in the UK, and she just did what I consider the most outrageous stunt that I've ever seen. She slept with over 100 men in the span of 14 hours. This was a group of men who subscribed to her they signed up when she put out a casting call, filmed it, obviously, then publicized this all over the media for months. This was back in October. People think this just happened, but this was back in October, and now she is upping the ante and announced that she is sleeping with over 1,000 men next in the span of 24 hours.
So when they put out that clip of her crying and looking kind of vacant and destroyed, the right was kind of sort of told you so about this, but she's going on with this. She's upping this 10 times.
Right. And I was actually quite surprised she invited this YouTuber, Josh Peters, to produce this documentary about the affair. Because it offers such an honest look into the behind the scenes nature of what she does. It's not the fantasy that she wants people to think it is. So he filmed her moments after all of these men had filed out and they had her way with her. And she was obviously visibly distraught, exhausted. She looked terrible. And it wasn't just physically exhausting. Obviously, going through this is emotionally traumatizing, but I feel like a lot of this is lost on people. Where does this behavior come from?
Yeah.
And I've noticed this is turning into a debate about the agency that she has in this situation. And people are asking, is she a victim? Was she exploited? Are the men to blame? Who is to blame? We need to blame someone. And that's really, it doesn't work because she did consent to this. She planned this out in advance. She has an entire team of staff that helped her coordinate this. This is something that she brought upon herself. And what's puzzling is, why would someone invite such egregious degradation upon themselves this way? Why would you humiliate yourself this way publicly? And I can only come to the conclusion that Lily Phillips hates herself very deeply, very viscerally. She hates herself. And she started for that reason. We're never going to know why. We're never going to know the real story, why she feels this way about herself, who even led her to believe that this was an option. Why did her parents not advise her against this? We're not going to know why she feels this way about herself, but it's clear that that's the reason she started the career in the first place, if you want to call it that. And that is the reason why she has taken it to this extreme level that most so-called models do not.
So, I mean, I completely agree with you that her agency is complete and she's responsible for this. But I hold the men responsible too. I think just because somebody consents to something doesn't mean you should do it to them. It does seem like, is a site in and of itself, or is it just something that they call any social media where you pay extra to get on the nude part?
Oh, you sweet summer child. Yes.
I knew you were going to say something like that. Go ahead.
OnlyFans is its own subscription site.
It's its own subscription site.
It's not all, but the way that it's used 99.9% of the time is to peddle material. And the men who participated in this record-breaking event are her subscribers on. they subscribe for her explicit content.
And did they pay extra for this? Like, in other words, was
I
it an
don't
act of
think they
prostitution?
did. At
No?
least if they did, that was not explicitly mentioned in the documentary or any of this. Like, they did this for free. There were men who actually flew from overseas to participate in this, men from other countries, and they felt so entitled once they got there. There was this other part of the documentary where she expresses that she was upset about not giving them the experience that they deserved and that they showed up for and spent so much money and time to have. She was kicking them out a few minutes early if they didn't finish, and she feels upset that she didn't give them the experience they deserved, which is absolutely insane. Everybody in this situation, her staff, herself, her family members, and the men, all of these people were degraded. Now, I don't think that anyone in this situation is a victim. I have never said that Lily Phillips is a victim, but simply because I am pointing out the nuance of why she would decide to do something this insane, I'm being told, you're taking away women's accountability. You're infantilizing them. She's not a victim. She's just playing a trick on all of us so that we're going to feel bad for her. No, I think she's very clearly, at least in her strong front that she is putting on, telling people, this is my fantasy. I love this. I enjoy what I do. I find it empowering. But I mean, she's not very bright. I don't think she would be able to fully introspect about her reasoning behind this decision. But her front so far has been that this has been a great experience, and it's very fulfilling for her that she gets to do digital sex work, which is now evolved into real life.
You know, speaking of, I mean, I was thinking this, you know, they called the oldest profession. So it's not like it was suddenly invented with the internet. It didn't just suddenly appear. It's been around since there have been people. But there does seem something particularly brutal and brutish about this. The idea that you would do, the idea that a man would do something like this on camera, you know, and basically display it. And that a woman, I mean, she might, there's got to be something really broken and ill. And what I guess I'm wondering, as someone who is part of this age group in the culture, is this something widespread? Is there a widespread idea, or is this just one mentally ill person being taken advantage of by a bunch of animals? I mean, is it indicative of anything?
She is certainly exceptional when it comes to the lengths that creators go to for attention. I have not seen anything of the sort before, but at this point, I believe there are 1.4 million American women who have signed up to be creators on. I wouldn't say the majority of those accounts are even actively posting. And certainly the vast majority of the ones who are actively posting on the platform are not making what we would consider a fortune. They make an average of $150 per month. Usually it does not take off to this level, but I mean, I think that people are misunderstanding what someone like Lily Phillips is after with this line of so-called work. Clearly she has made millions upon millions of dollars. She has made enough money, like many of the top earners on the platform, where she would never have to work again in her life. And possibly if she has children or grandchildren, they would have to never work in their lives either. It's not really about the money at this point, and it never was, in my opinion. The money is the incentive on the surface level, but she is looking for attention first and foremost, and she doesn't really care whether it's positive or negative. And perhaps that's why she allowed Joshua Peters to film this documentary, which is not biased in her favor. She doesn't care if people on the internet drag her into oblivion. It's just all feedback to her. It's negative or positive. It doesn't matter. This is all she wants. And I think in a sick sense, by doing this stunt, she was begging someone, anyone, to stop her. And that's the most infuriating thing about this whole situation, is that nobody in Lily's life, be it a friend, a family member, any loved one, any staff member, even a follower of hers. Nobody stopped her from doing this. And of course, there's only so much that we can do as just observers of this situation. But the least we can do is speak out about it. And that's what I'm trying to do. I released an op-ed on this whole situation earlier today in the Post Millennial. And I was pitching this around to different outlets, which I will not name, who did not want to post it. They did not want to publish it because it was a strongly worded moral condemnation of everything going on here. And people are just too afraid to do that. They're too afraid to seem judgmental, because being judgmental is the only sin in our culture today. There's nothing else worse than being judgmental.
It's the fear of becoming irrelevant. You're absolutely right. Mary Morgan, the host of Pop Culture Crisis. Thank you for coming on. I want to have you back to talk about other matters, but I appreciate you coming on in a hurry to talk about this.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Mary. If you own a handgun for self-defense like I do, your storage likely fits into one of two frustrating categories. It's either locked away safe but out of reach in an emergency, or it's unsecured, leaving it vulnerable to anyone. Stopbox USA saw the problem and designed a groundbreaking solution, the Stopbox Pro. With the Stopbox Pro, you'll never have to choose between security and readiness again. Its ingenious push-button locking system gives you fast, reliable access when every second matters, without the hassle of keys or reliance on batteries. It's 100% mechanical, so it works every time, no power needed. With Stopbox USA, you can finally have both security and readiness. The Stopbox Pro's mechanical keyless system allows for fast, secure access without the risk of fumbling for keys when every second counts. It's also battery-free, so you never have to worry about your lock not working. Our listeners are getting 10% off their entire order when they use code Klavan. Stopbox is also running a buy one, get one free offer on their Stopbox Pro. That's 10% off and a free Stopbox Pro when you use code Klavan at stopboxusa.com. So one more time, for a limited time only, our listeners are getting a crazy deal. Not only do you get 10% off your entire order when you use code Klavan at stopboxusa.com, but they're also giving you buy one, get one free for their Stopbox Pro. That's 10% off and a free Stopbox Pro when you use code Klavan at stopboxusa.com. Discover a better way to balance security and readiness with Stopbox if and only if you know how to spell Klavan. It's Klavan. No E's in Klavan. I just make it look this easy. Final chapter, and now the news. Now, we've been pounding the media for the wages of fake news, the ways in which fake news damage and distort our culture, and have damaged and distorted our culture, and hopefully will stop now that Donald Trump has come into office, not necessarily because of Trump directly, but because it shows that we are not paying attention to them anymore. But I want to compare fake news to the good news. Just after watching that thing about Lily Phillips and talking about that, and since this is Christmas or it's Advent, and we're thinking about the Virgin Mary, who is the model for women in Christianity, and this is her time because it's before the birth of Christ. And I had a revelation recently, and I want to talk about it. And in talking about it, I'm going to say some things that many of you disagree with, and that's fine. I don't expect you to agree with me. I just expect you not to hate me for disagreeing with you and to listen to what this experience was, because it's personal to me. Now, I've said this before, but I don't believe in a central Catholic doctrine, which is the perpetual virginity of Mary, that she lived and died a virgin, that even giving birth didn't end her virginity. This is a very central doctrine to Catholic Christianity, and I'm an Anglican Catholic, and in Anglican Catholicism, you can believe in it, but you don't have to believe in it. And I respect it. I respect what it says, but the arguments don't hold for me, and it's not in keeping with Scripture. You don't have to like it. You don't have to agree with me. This is just the way what I feel. However, I was recently on a Catholic show. And the reason I feel this way, by the way, is because I feel that Mary is the model of mankind. That what she does is she takes God into herself and brings forth life. And that is true of all people, female and men, everything that we create that is good and beautiful and real comes from God. It doesn't come from us. It comes through us. And we give birth to it, as it were, like Mary. And so because she's the model of mankind, I think a virgin mother is a beautiful thing, a miraculous thing, but a virgin wife is not. And I think that, if she's the model of mankind, I don't think we even should think of her as a virgin wife, because that is not a good thing. That's not a positive thing. That's my feeling about it. So recently I was on a show called Pints with Aquinas with a trad Catholic guy named Matt Fradd, who I liked extremely. And it's a long show. We were on for like 3 hours, smoking cigars, talking about God, possibly one of my favorite things to do. And I had a great time, and Matt is a terrific guy. And at one point I mentioned that I didn't have a rosary. I never prayed the rosary. And he said, oh, and he opened a drawer and gave me a rosary. And I thought, okay, well, I'll try this. And I took it home, and I used the Hallow app, which we sometimes advertise at DailyWire, and prayed the rosary. And the rosary, for those of you who don't know about it, is all about the Virgin Mary. It is basically a meditative repetition of praise of Mary. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. And it goes on for about 20 minutes, and you do this in a meditative way. And you feel, I felt her presence as I was doing this, and I've done it since, and it's very, I like it. It's very purifying and makes you feel that you're in the presence of the holy and the divine. It was beautiful. After it was over, I suddenly had this idea, and I'm very resistant to this idea of the perpetual virginity of Mary for the reason that I said, not because I don't like Catholics or think it's a terrible thing, but because I think a wife should not be a virgin, and I don't want to think of Mary as being something that she should not have been. I have a different view of sex than the Roman Catholic Church. But I do have this idea about God and heaven and eternity that is not just my idea. C.S. Lewis talks about it. It's talked about by a lot of theologians. That eternity is not a long time. It's not time going on forever. It's all time at once. So for instance, when you die and you are welcomed, hopefully, into eternity, it is possible that you won't have to wait for your loved ones to be there. They'll already be there, because all time is there, including the time when their lives are over too. Eternity, God living in eternity takes away, for instance, things like causation, because causation is something that happens in time. There's an action, and that causes another action, but that may look entirely different. We can't imagine it. It's kind of like quantum physics, like my son Spencer, no relation, said of the fact that light is a wave and a particle. We can understand it, but we can't imagine it. And eternity is like that. We can understand that it's all time at once, but we can't imagine what that's like, so you don't have to try. But this gets rid of the idea of free will. A lot of people say, well, how can God know everything, and yet we have free will if he already knows what we're going to do? But the point of that is that all time is happening at once, and therefore, there is no knowing what we're going to do before we do it, because there is no before. That's what eternity is like, I believe, and I very much believe it. And suddenly I had this idea after praying the rosary that in eternity, where I believe Mary most certainly is, in eternity, Mary is always perpetually that virgin who had that child, but she's also perpetually a wife, and hopefully a full wife, the wife who had the sons and the brothers and sisters of Jesus mentioned in the Gospels. And so she may be both. She may be both perpetually the virgin and perpetually the active, full, complete sexual wife. And what I thought about this, and again, you don't have to agree with me. I'm not a theologian. You don't have to include this in your theology. This was something coming to me on my journey of understanding toward God. But then I thought, that is the model of womankind, because life has meaning. Flesh has meaning. The things we do with our bodies have meaning. If I go and just walk up to a child and punch it, you know immediately that the meaning of that is evil. That's bad. You know it. You don't have to be told it. You don't have to prove it. You know it. And when a woman gives birth to a child, she is doing something that mammals do. It's like a cat giving birth to kittens, a dog giving birth to puppies, but she's doing something way beyond that, isn't she? So she is at once giving birth in the way that wives give birth, by having sex with their husbands and joining genes and all those things that happen. But she is also at the same time doing what Mary, the Virgin Mother, does, is giving birth to something that's entirely new, a human life, the image of God, something that didn't come into her through her husband, that came into her really in the same way that Jesus came into Mary. She's doing both those things. And it goes beyond, this invention of a human soul, this creation of a human soul. As I've said before, but it was worth repeating, it goes beyond just gestation and, being fat and uncomfortable and all this stuff, and birth and labor and the pain of labor. It also goes into this interplay between a mother in those first years, I think, of a child's life, when she and her love make this person into a person. And William Wordsworth wrote this beautiful, beautiful passage in his autobiographical poem, The Prelude, where he describes this happening. And what he describes, because it's poetry, just so you know what I'm reading, what he describes in this brief passage is the love passing into the eyes of the baby at the baby's mother's breast, and letting him see that love infuses all of creation, so that he connects to creation in love through the mother and becomes the image of God. And this is what William Wordsworth wrote. He said, "Blessed is the infant babe, nursed in his mother's arms, who sinks to sleep rocked on his mother's breast, who with his soul drinks in the feelings of his mother's eye. For him, in one dear presence, there exists a virtue which irradiates and exalts objects through widest intercourse of sense. No outcast he, bewildered and depressed. Along his infant veins are interfused the gravitation and the filial bond of nature that connects him with the world." That is the invention of a soul. That is not what dogs do when they have puppies. That's not what cats do when they have kittens. And that to me is an image of womanhood that needs to be restored through the honor of men and through the virtue of women, because if men have no honor, women will have no virtue. And if women have no virtue, men will ultimately have no honor, and you'll have women inviting people to them and men saying yes, as if that were somehow okay because she said it was okay. This is a different view of women. And just like they suppress what justice is when they put forward leftist ideas like Daniel Penny was somehow a bad guy instead of a hero, and just like they suppress what corruption is when they cover up for people like Christopher Wray and Joe Biden and then accuse Donald Trump of being what they are. They suppress the very nature of human life when they suppress what a woman is, when they tell her that she's her desires, when they tell her that she, is sex positive if she treats herself like a hunk of meat. This description of what a woman does that makes her both like the Virgin Mary and like the wife Mary. I don't know, maybe it's me, but that just seems more meaningful, important, honorable, and beautiful than anything you're ever going to do on. In fact, it seems to me more meaningful and beautiful and honorable than just about anything else any human being does anywhere, which is, in fact, why we celebrate Advent as we look forward to the birth of Christ. You know what I love? I love being able to enjoy a glass of wine or maybe even whiskey with friends without worrying about how I'll feel the next morning. That's why I want to tell you about this fascinating product called Pre-Alcohol by ZBiotics. Here's what makes it special. ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic Drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. The science behind it is actually really fascinating. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. And contrary to what most people think, it's the byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. That's where ZBiotics comes in. The pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. So I try very hard not to drink heavily, but a lot of times I got to wake up early in the morning after having a couple of drinks. You got to take that prebiotic so you feel all right. Just remember to make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. With the holiday season upon us, I know I'm going to be consuming a bit more alcohol than usual. With pre-alcohol, I can stay on track and not let the season throw me off course. Go to zbiotics.com/Klavan to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Klavan at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/Klavan and use the code Klavan at checkout for 15% off. And remember, most importantly, that Klavan has no E's in it. It's Klavan. Still searching for the perfect gift? Don't sweat it. DailyWire Plus gift memberships are 40% off right now. but not for long. This isn't just a gift, it's a ticket to uncensored truth, unapologetic news, and premium entertainment for the conservative in your life. With a Daily Wire Plus membership, they'll get a year of daily shows from the most trusted voices in conservative media with limited ads. Live breaking news that gives the full story, no agendas, just the facts. Access to investigative journalism, exposing what the mainstream won't, an entertainment library packed with hit movies and documentaries like Am I Racist, along with can't-miss series like Dr. Jordan B. Peterson's The Gospels. And here's the best part to keep shopping stress-free. You pick the delivery date for the Daily Wire Plus gift membership, and we'll handle the rest. 40% off Daily Wire Plus gift memberships. Go to dailywire.com/gift now. Klavan Klapbacks.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
All right. Who is it from? From Joel Harris. I says, Andrew, you are my favorite. And let me just say, I really appreciate that, but it's obvious that, of course, who else would be your favorite? You are my favorite, but I'm frustrated with your understanding of ideology. I talked about this last week about how ideology is self-proving ideas that don't necessarily make reference to reality. He says there's nothing inherent in ideology that means it must reference itself. That's one way to develop an ideology, but it's not the only way. Anyone who approaches the world, society, or politics with a systematic perspective has an ideology. The key is to have a good ideology, one that makes sense. Thanks. Okay, so here's my problem with that. I understand that can be a view of ideology. I would call that a philosophy. Most people have a philosophy. They have a series of ideas that link together that form a philosophy. But we have the word an ideologue. And an ideologue is someone who sticks to his ideas even when he is surrounded by the horrible results of those ideas. So I'm using ideology as the philosophy of an ideologue. That's how I'm using the word. And I think that is a real thing. And the reason it's a real thing is very important. No philosophy, no human philosophy encompasses the vagaries of life. None. There is no such thing as a philosophy. You can have philosophies that are entirely true, but they still will not include all of life because life is too big. That is why Jesus doesn't practice philosophy. He is not a philosopher. He has a viewpoint, and that is why I wrote The Truth and Beauty after my son Spencer, no relation, said to me, I said, I'm having a hard time understanding the Sermon on the Mount. And he said, that's because you're trying to understand a philosophy instead of getting to know a person. And because people are bigger than any philosophy. And when you stick to your philosophy to the point that you are celebrating like Stalin did, like Hitler did, like Taylor Lorenz did when she celebrated the assassination of this healthcare CEO, you are then an ideologue, and that's the sort of ideology I'm referring to. An ideology is a philosophy that never refers to the outside to check not only on things that don't agree with the philosophy, but also on things that simply don't fit because human life is just too big. This is from Sean. I have been watching your show for a while now and generally appreciate your emphasis on the importance of Christianity and culture in discussing the political problems of the day. I was surprised, however, to hear that your definition of a Christian was someone who accepted the Nicene Creed. That's not entirely my definition of a Christian, but I think that's kind of a baseline. The creed is entirely man-made, came about through great political machinations, and had a great many dissenters who were killed or driven out for rejecting it. Are you open to exploring the possibility that not only is this creed false, but its existence is a sign that the Church of Christ became lost and corrupted? And he goes on to point out the fact, which is a fact, that the Trinity does not exist in the Bible, but is deduced from the Bible. So here, I have a couple of comments about this. The most important one is how something is made really doesn't mean anything. People always make this mistake. They think, well, this kingdom was formed by, there were Indian wars and the land was taken away from the Indians, therefore this empire is bad. The empire may be good and have been formed in human sin and wickedness because everything is formed in human sin and wickedness that is formed on earth. Nothing is made pristinely. Nothing is made purely. And it's true, the creed, the Nicene Creed, is part of the development of Christianity into a power player, which was in fact corrupting. And the church itself has been corrupt. It's always corrupt because it always has people in it, but that doesn't mean that nothing beautiful or godly comes out of it. So that reasoning doesn't hold. I think the Nicene Creed does, in fact, explain what is in very, succinctly states what happens in the Gospels. That, God is born of a virgin, he is killed and is buried, comes back and is resurrected, will come back to judge the quick and the dead, and so on. I think the Creed is a very, very succinct statement of that, and I don't think you can get around it. I suppose you can say you don't believe in the Trinity, as my priest once said to me, if you talk about the Trinity for more than 5 minutes, you are certain to commit heresy. But still, I think that the Creed is a pretty succinct statement of what the Gospels teach, and the fact that it was made by sinful people in a sinful way is just means it was made on earth, and so it's not going to be perfect, but it is what it is, and I still think so. But you're welcome to disagree. I don't think there's a quiz at the end of life. I think it's much more complex than that. We now have to go into member block, which means those of you who are not members will receive the Klavanlessness that you so deeply deserve for abandoning us without supporting us, listening without supporting us. You will now be hurled. Did I say hurled? Hurled into Klavanlessness, which is darkness, flames, broken glass, all kinds of terrible things. So become a member today to avoid these terrible moments. For at least 10 minutes, go to dailywire.com/subscribe. Use code Klavan at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans. If you haven't done that yet, do it now. If you have done it, come on to Member Block.